back to That's Entertainment, the exciting entertainment show where we look at all the interesting entertainment news from last week, this week. In theatrical news, China continues its record-breaking success. Despite the continued limited audience capacity, the New Year holiday period generated $1.2 billion in sales, or 155 million tickets sold. That's an almost 25% increase in revenue from 2019's all-time record. Two releases have now grossed in the range of $620 million each in just the first 10 days of the release. That's the buddy comedy Detective Chinatown 3 that we talked about last week, and the time travel comedy Hi Mum, which continues to generate great word-of-mouth support. Incredibly, the Chinese box office has already generated $2 billion in ticket sales this year. As we said last week, this continues to be a great indicator for audiences worldwide. Certainly a lot of confidence is being injected back into the market looking at these numbers. Others in Hollywood obviously agree. I think what China tells us is that when people feel comfortable going to movies, when it's safe and there are great movies available, they're coming back. And by the way, we haven't only seen this in China. We also saw this in Japan, we've seen it in Korea, and we've seen it in Taiwan. To paraphrase what someone else said, everyone has a kitchen in their house, but we still go to restaurants. The fact they happen to have an ability to watch something in their living room doesn't necessarily mean they're going to stop coming to the movies. That was CEO of IMAX, Richard Gelfond, as reported in The Hollywood Reporter. Some interesting analysis in from the US research firm NRG. They found that 53% of people said that they're looking forward to getting back to the cinema. That puts that information 6 points above attending a religious indoor service. So currently cinemas factor anticipated better than churches, which is interesting. 60% said they expect to see a movie in theaters within 3 months. This study was done in February, so we're looking at that May time as being when they're looking to get back into the cinemas. And 82% of those surveys said that they would be very comfortable to return to the cinemas once the vaccine is broadly available. These numbers are the highest that NRG has seen in their, obviously a lot of their polling work is ongoing. Lots of good encouraging news coming out of the industry right now. Lots of confidence coming back into the industry as we're beginning to see these numbers play out in the territories that are relatively free from the pandemic. I think this bodes extremely well for the market and we should all be hopeful. Now it's just a question of ending the lockdown. Now to VOD news. Getting a viewer to choose to watch a particular show on a streaming platform is a well-documented challenge. As I said, if you want to see a good example of that or, experiment with a good example of that, jump on Netflix, measure your pulse, record the number before you jump onto Netflix, record the number once you've spent 2 or 3 minutes trying to find what to watch. Looking for content is stressful and a lot of people give up during that process, which is why discovery and marketing is so important to the VOD services. However, according to Christopher Mack, who's the director of talent investment and development at Netflix, even after that choice has been made, there's still no guarantee as to whether an audience member will stick with what they've selected. In their research, Netflix has found that audiences subconsciously decide whether they're going to watch a show within 5 seconds of starting it. And so it's very important to hook audiences with a teaser or an opening scene that gives the viewers a taste of what the show's central character, conflict, or theme, or world is going to be about. Christopher Mack is quoted as saying, "They may tune in and their mind might say, this might not be the show for them. But there might be something in that teaser that makes them want to stick around and see what's going on." Looking at my own personal user set of 1 for my own analysis, I find I am very often abandoning TV shows that I'm logging in to watch on Netflix. I really have to understand a little bit more about what the backstory is. Maybe see a few creative executions of trailers online, get excited about something for me to really dial in. When I'm just browsing, I often find myself abandoning shows quickly. So I guess, as things change, or the more things change, the more things stay the same. Well, if we look at the experience with cable TV, it's probably a very similar abandonment psychology that we're facing when we have millions of channels to choose from and stuff that's constantly on. People's browsing habits are kind of impacted by this thing. And, again, a TV show, it's very important that people get locked in from the beginning. Maybe we're facing a future in VOD where, no one can do a slow burn start, which we kind of start a shame really when you look at great TV shows like The Wire, which really spent the first season just setting the tone for the whole show. Will that kind of content do well on VOD platforms? Maybe HBO can maintain that level of interest. I would say an HBO viewer is a more discerning viewer than a Netflix viewer, for instance, certainly through HBO Nordic, because that's, most of their TV shows are adult content and, take some getting into. Jumping on to the next piece of news, the seemingly unstoppable rise of Disney Plus briefly fell victim to its own success last week. The streaming service went down for 10 minutes for some subscribers across US and Canada. This was all in relation to the latest Marvel episodes that WandaVision dropped. A good example of how releasing a show the old-fashioned way with a new episode each week can quickly build the audience as the series progresses. That's very interesting. So Disney Plus have opted for a weekly rollout of a show instead of doing the whole binge watching thing, which Netflix specializes in. And if that's building an audience, well, the server outages are a very good indication they're onto something again, or they're onto something good here. The growth of advertising VOD continues. Users of free streaming services reached a new high in the UK and France and US over 2020. UK's peak was at 68% in Q1, France is at 42% in Q3, and the US at 28% in Q3. These all came from WARC.com, which is tracking this kind of subscription. The insatiable appetite for good shows continues for VOD platforms. So last week we saw Disney Plus unveil its debut slate of 10 European originals. Warner Media announced a preschool slate for HBO Max to reach 50 originals by 2023. Apple and Skydance Animation set a multi-year feature film and TV deal. Wednesday Addams live-action series from Tim Burton is ordered by Netflix. Gremlins prequel, the animated series, gets an early season 2 renewal on HBO Max. The Raid director Gareth Evans signs an exclusive deal with Netflix and sets Tom Hardy-led Havoc as the first film. J.J. Abrams' original drama Subject to Change is also greenlit by HBO Max. And Dota, Dragon's Blood, Netflix announces an anime series based on the Valve video game franchise. Well, that's a lot of content that's being greenlit, and I think this is going to set the pace for what we're going to continue to see today. Growing choice, growing franchises. I think that's what Netflix is really looking for here, is the franchise killer, or well, it's probably the wrong way of saying it, but a killer franchise might be the better way of describing it, which they have yet failed to do outside of their initial successes with the likes of House of Cards, The Witcher, and other series that build universes. In relation to HBO, they're still behind the curve, I would say, in their storytelling, but it's only a matter of time before they lock into something good that we'll all be watching online, I'm very sure, in the next year. And given the slate changes across the rest of the VOD platforms, it's not long before these other services start to lock in on things that also are franchise builders. That's all from the show this week. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We publish this show both to LinkedIn and to YouTube. On the 9th of March, we're going to have another fascinating webinar where we'll be looking at the future of movie production and distribution and looking at opportunities for self-promotion and self-distribution. We're encountering more and more producers in the market that can't wait, that have made content, and that content now needs to go out and meet an audience. So look forward to communicating again with you all at some point later this week where we look into the next round of news. Goodbye.